This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions.
Hi, welcome back to Invest Like a Pro. This is Joe Rabil. Going to give you a stock market update. I'm going to go through the trend and momentum of the S&P in multiple time frames. I'm also going to go through the market conditions, which includes sentiment and overbought, oversold, as well as volatility. Before I do that, just quickly, if you have an interest in learning more about trend and momentum, especially using MACD and ADX together in multiple time frames, I think it's worthwhile to spend the $5.99. I'm offering this book at a discount in an ebook format. If you have an interest, go to rabilstockresearch.com/book. All right, we're going to get into the charts now, but first let's just start. And we have a little bump in the sentiment. Okay, the sentiment's actually gone up, even though we're really not trading well the last few days. But you got to realize the sentiment's being taken through this period because it's week over week that ends on Wednesday. And really, actually, it's probably by Tuesday that they're closing it out. So that's likely the reason why it was actually moving. The sentiment actually bumped up, and the number of bulls actually jumped over 50 again. It only gets dangerous if it pops up over, I would say, like in the high 50s or something like that. Or if this bumps up into the 30s, maybe like mid 30s or something, we should be a little bit more concerned. But what I think is going to happen here is, if you notice, we've got the overbought, oversold oscillator, the 5 RSI on the S&P weekly chart is down to 31. All right, so this should actually be kind of over here because it's getting very close to the oversold condition where we'd put an X in the positive camp. Now, based on how this is reacting, if we get a move down and we undercut this low, I think we're going to, first of all, this is going to be way oversold. This is going to drop down into the 20s. And I think people are going to turn bearish. I think this sentiment number will plummet. I think the bulls will really drop. And I'm betting that we have a signal like this come if we get the move to the downside. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if we get a move where we undercut this low. Now, the reason why that's so important, I'll explain when I get into the trend and momentum side. We have some pretty significant support right in that 41, 4200 zone. Again, I'll get into that in a minute. All right. So that's what we're looking for from a short-term, maybe potential trading standpoint, I think, just based on the way things are set up. Here's the thing. If we look at what's going on with the volatility, we've got a bullish setup on the weekly, and that is because this average true range continues to go down. It's starting to flatten out a little bit here. It's not actually turned up. And if you go back and look at this average true range, it'll tend to turn up prior to big drops. I can go back through all these big drops, and it'll usually at least show a sign that it's tilting up, even if it's not above the moving average. I really like when it moves above the moving average, but the fact of the matter is this isn't even turned up yet. So that's one factor, and that tells me that I really am not looking for, if we do break this low, that I'm not necessarily looking for a follow through that turns this into a big decline, just based on how we're sitting on a volatility basis. Is it possible that this could be a lagging indicator this time and turn? I mean, yeah, it could happen. It could just fall apart, and then this just didn't give us any warning at all. It would be, pretty rare, pretty rare. I'm not, and you got to take it the weight of the evidence. We got to look at everything and come up to a conclusion. We just don't have, we've got more on the negative side than we do on the positive side, but I don't know that we're weighted enough on that side to get something huge to the downside. We could definitely come down, though, and undercut and test a little bit better. Just based on what I'm seeing in the individual stocks that I review, there's definitely more mending that needs to be done based on the recent damage. Okay. Now, if we go to the daily's at the opposite end because this is rising above its moving average. So this is what I said last week. Like, this doesn't surprise me that this is channeling. It would surprise me if this just collapsed to the downside. But for this just to have a lot of volatility right now is kind of what we should be expecting. Don't expect this to break out in this position when this is doing this. It really shouldn't do something like that. It could bounce around or it could break down. But the odds of it going straight up and through all this with this kind of volatility, I think is pretty low. All right. So that's our two areas here. Now, when we go through, the only thing that I changed here was I put the momentum on the daily is full-fledged bearish right now. These, both of the weekly and the monthly trend and momentum are neutral. So let me explain why I'm coming up with those conclusions. All right, we're going to start with the monthly. I like to look at it on a wide angle lens and then work my way down. All right, we're going to start with this monthly. And let's just look at what's taking place, because we've had a move up, we got into resistance, and we started to pull back. Now, we've pulled back for 2 months, and we've made 2 lower highs, and the MACD is still holding its signal line. So anyone who's read the book knows we are potentially setting up a pinch play to the upside. Now, I thought this might end up being a inside bar, but it's not. But right now, if you look, now it's very early in the month. Well, we've still got a couple weeks left in the month. So we don't know. I mean, you don't want to make any draw any conclusions based on what we're seeing right now. But right now, we do have a little doji bar format. If it were to finish the month like this, then we could be on the lookout for something to move to the upside, and this 18 could start cupping around. But a couple things that I'm watching for. Number one is obviously this zone here. 4,100 is the S&P 18 month, and 4,200 is where we have a lot of support. But we want to keep two things in mind. We want to make sure that during this pullback that the MACD holds its signal line. And secondly, we really prefer to see the green DI, the plus DI, the buyers hold above the red DI, the negative DI. All right, and that's the sellers. If we can have that take place during this pullback, I think it has a much better chance of making another move to the upside. If any of those we start to lose those things, then you got to start, it's going to start weakening the position of this, and it could take the form of some kind, like ending up being a trading range. So we have to be open to that as a possibility, but we want to watch and see how 4,200 area holds. Now, I changed this. I had this as a horizontal line, but it goes against everything I believe. I don't think you can say there's just a horizontal line at 4,200 and it's an area. And the area really starts here where it broke out from. This was the top of that was the 3 in the 1, 2, 3 change in trend. This is the 1, 2 was the test, 3 is coming back up through this prior high. All right. So that's the upper end. And then we have a couple fib levels that we've got. And then we also have the 200-day, or the 40-week is what I use, is a 40-week. And then we also have the trend line off of this low, right? So, I mean, I can draw that in. I took that off because there's too much noise there. But if we break the 40-week or the 200-day, we're going to break the trend line. And that really is going to scare some people, I think. And that might help increase the number of bears and reduce the number of bulls as we pull into this support zone. So what we're looking for is a pullback that might, and actually be better if it bounced around a little bit longer, because I want to get this MACD a little bit closer to the 0 line, and I want to get this ADX a little bit lower. If it can pull that off and then come into this zone and we get bearish and we get oversold, then we got ourselves a pretty interesting potential buying chance. So we want to be on the lookout for that. We're not going to jump the gun and guess or anything, but we do want to anticipate. Always want to think like a chess player, think 2 or 3 moves in advance. And right now, this is kind of where I'm leaning. Because we broke the 18 and the 18 is rolled over, the next target level for me is the 18 on the next higher time frame. So 4,200 zone. It doesn't have to come and touch it on the nose, but somewhere in that area is where I want to be watching for signs of improvement, signs of divergence. So let's go to the daily and see if we can figure out if this goes to a new low and MACD makes a higher bottom, right? We've got our first sign of divergence. If red DI makes a lower high while that's taking place, these are all the things we want to be on the lookout for. Now, I do think it's possible it doesn't go to a new low. It just comes down in the zone and turns back to the upside. But the way it's trading and the pickup in volume that we're starting to see, this is definitely this is back-to-back distribution days after this sideways consolidation pattern, right? Failing at the 40. And I don't have the RSI up, but we do have an RSI sell signal. I do recommend going back through my old videos on RSI. I've done it a number of times. I use a 5 RSI and a 20 RSI. One's for the trend, one's for the overbought, oversold. And I think it's kind of important to keep an eye on that in conjunction with what we're doing here. We have somewhat of a zero line reversal. I mean, this kind of overran a little bit, and this maybe not make it. But if you notice, green DI was not able to get above 25, and now red is sort of climbing back above. So the bears are still in control. We're still in the process of this 1, 2, 3 reversal. If we take out this low, it is confirmed to the downside. So we want to be on the lookout for that. And then the only thing I'll mention here is that we have made a pretty big drop. Now, let's just look at this for a second. Hold on. Highlight the hourly. Now, if you notice, we had a lot of volatility. This was the Fed talking today. Powell was speaking, and look at these bars. You see these big volatility bars. I mean, if you look at, I know it doesn't qualify as a pinch, and I know it doesn't qualify. It didn't make a zig back up to the upside and then back down. But I mean, come on. I mean, you know, I mean, that's a 2-bar rally with all the noise, right? We had a lot of noise. So we had our move to the upside, and now we're heading back down. I think you've completed a bearish signal if you were to call that a swing up and then a swing down. So I'm a big believer in using common sense with technical analysis. I know it doesn't fit the description exactly that I have in my course, and that it would be nice if this made a lower high and then a lower low. But I mean, you know, you got to look at it with the volatility. A nice pinch after breaking the zero line for the first time. Red stayed in control throughout this whole period. So anyway, that's kind of how I'm seeing that. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we got a little bit of a rally here, just because this has made a pretty big drop in a short period of time. But the fact of the matter is, I kind of refer to these short-term charts, the daily and the hourly, is kind of like guilty until proven innocent. I'm sort of the bias that they're going down until they prove me wrong. And I'm not saying wrong. I'm just saying, like, they're going to have to show some strength. They got to show some signs of life. I need to see some green DI or some kind of a reversal bar. I need to see, you know, we don't have a lot of strength in this decline on the hourly. You see how the ADX hasn't climbed above 25? So what we'd want to see, but that doesn't mean anything yet, because we're still going down. So if, let's say we drop like this and all of a sudden these are breaking out, well, then there really wasn't ever any divergence. But if we turn here and say break some kind of a trend line or something like this, and then green DI pops, then I start to think, okay, maybe we've made some kind of an interim low. So these are all the things you got to be on the lookout for and watching for every day. Just go through, have these charts up, and keep an eye on them. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.